a most valuable success, because now the straining Schlieffen plan broke down at last. General von Bülow, in great alarm, called to von Kluck for help, and von Kluck, halting his march to the southwest, turned inwards, towards Paris. The streets of Paris were sad and empty, the city of pleasure silent now and scared. The government had gone to the distant safety of Bordeaux, and many of the citizens had also fled. General Joseph Gallieni was in sole command. Before he left, the Minister of War had told Gallieni to defend Paris à outrance. Do you understand, Minister, the significance of the words à outrance? Asked Gallieni. They mean destruction, ruins, dynamiting bridges in the center of the city. À outrance, the minister repeated. Gallieni issued a proclamation.
Army of Paris, citizens of Paris, the members of the government of the Republic have left Paris to give a new impulse to the national defense. I have received a mandate to defend Paris against the invader. This mandate I shall carry out to the end.
The French people were learning fast what war meant. Everyone was learning. A special Sunday afternoon edition of the London Times, with a dispatch from a correspondent in Amiens, confirmed what the Observant had been guessing from hints and suggestions.
It is important that the nation should know and realize certain things. Since Monday morning last, the German advance has been one of almost incredible rapidity. British forces fought a terrible fight which may be called the Action of Mons. The broken army fought its way desperately with many stands, forced backwards and ever backwards by the sheer numbers of an enemy prepared to throw away 3 or 4 men for the life of every British soldier. Our losses are very great. I have seen the broken bits of many regiments. Some have lost nearly all their officers. To sum up, the British Expeditionary Force has suffered terrible losses and requires immediate and immense reinforcement.
Lord Kitchener, Secretary of State for War, at once circulated an official correction to the Times correspondent's alarming dispatch.
There has, in effect, been a 4 days battle on the 23rd, 24th, 25th and 26th August. During the whole of this period, the British troops, in conformity with the general movement of the French armies, were occupied in resisting and checking the German advance and in withdrawing to the new lines of defense.
In the House of Commons, the Prime Minister, Mr. Asquith, also made a statement.
It is impossible too highly to commend the patriotic reticence of the press as a whole, from the beginning of the war up to the present moment. The publication in the Times would appear to be a very regrettable exception, and I trust it will not recur.
The British public was not ready for too much truth. Even in victorious Germany, there were signs which contradicted the boasting of the press. A British-born German princess wrote on September the 2nd,
"Today I went out to the Grunwald to see the arrival of trains full of wounded, in the hope that I might see some English and help them. But it turned out to be a false report, and they were only transport trains carrying troops from the Western Front to Russia. There was a tremendous reception, but the troops looked too weary to respond to it. Very different from those of a short time ago."
And in St. Petersburg also, bad news was making its first impact.
I kept passing groups of people engrossed in very lively discussions. An especially large group was gathered before the bulletin boards of the newspaper Novoye Vremya. I was somewhat surprised, for I'd never seen so many people there. Certainly an event of exceptional importance must have occurred at the front. People looked upset, and a voice said, "What a disaster! Even generals have been killed. Why is the government deceiving us with news of victories?" To which another voice added, "It's exactly the same mess that happened during the war with Japan."
A chill struck at the hearts of the Allied nations. A great weight seemed to be pressing down upon them all. Whatever might be happening inside the German war machine, whatever mistakes the Supreme Command might be making, the advance of the German armies seemed inexorable, invincible. Yet all was not well with the mood of the German soldiers. They were becoming weary beyond words, and weariness breeds bitterness.
we marched on and on and on. We never dared to take off our boots because our feet were so swollen that we didn't think it would be possible to put them on again. And in a small village, the mayor came and asked our company commanders not to allow us to cut off the hands of children. These were atrocity stories which he heard about the German army. At first we laughed about it, but when we heard of other propaganda things against the German army, we became angry.
Our men are done up. The men stagger forward, their faces coated with dust, their uniforms in rags. They look like living scarecrows. They march with their eyes closed, singing in chorus so they shall not fall asleep on the march. The certainty of early victory and of a triumphal entry into Paris keeps them going. It is the delirium of victory that sustains our men. And in order that their bodies may be as intoxicated as their souls, they drink to excess. But this drunkenness helps to keep them going.
The British Expeditionary Force passed through the deep forest of Compiègne, pausing to fight a rearguard action at Villers-Cotterêts.
It was shortly after we passed a place called Villers-Cotterêts, which, when the nearness of Paris began to penetrate our tiredness, and we noticed the kilometre stones at the side of the road. But gradually, we were getting nearer and nearer to Paris, 25, 24, 23. We couldn't believe it was happening to us, but every step nearer to Paris, as witnessed by these kilometre stones, were another blow on the head, which increased our depression. And we mentally felt that should we reach zero, that is Paris itself, that as far as we were concerned, we'd have lost the war.
Day by day, the essential switch of divisions and army corps from right to left was going on. Day by day, the picture changing, imperceptibly but decisively. And all the time, as the troop trains rumbled across France to the decisive point, as the last pitiful batches of refugees made their escapes, and as the last kilometre posts dragged slowly past the exhausted soldiers, General Joffre was waiting his opportunity. Hour by hour, the news came in from airmen, from cavalry, from secret agents, from commanders. Much of it was bad, bad enough to frighten a lesser man to death. But one thing was certain. The German right wing, General von Kluck's mighty First Army, was not, after all, going to encircle the Allied left. On the contrary, if it held on to its direction, it was going to march across the defenses of Paris, where Gallieni was waiting like an eagle. And as it did so, its own flank would be exposed. The most dangerous mistake in war. Joffre did not fail to perceive this.
I actually saw him when, on the afternoon that he decided on the Battle of the Marne. I've never seen, very few people have ever seen anybody with such a burden placed on his shoulders, with nobody to help, just weighing the pros and cons of this movement and that movement, what orders to issue. It lasted quite a long time, perhaps a couple of hours. And then he got up, his decision was taken, and the orders went out that night.
The pendulum was coming briefly to rest. For an indefinable moment of time, the soldiers paused in movement. Under the gilding leaves of early autumn, round their campfires, the men of the warring nations drew a little breath. The moment of decision was at hand.